Okay, so my video about like the stay-at-home girlfriend trend, how stupid and just not thought out it is, has gained a lot of traction. We're at like 40,000 likes at this point. And the majority of you guys understood what I was saying and what the concern was, but there's a select few who have decided that anytime anybody says anything about women, they're being misogynistic and it's internalized misogyny and they're projecting and they're hating and blah, blah, blah. The Girls Support Girls movement has done irreversible damage to y'all's fucking pea brains, and here's why. You can support women, but true support is going to require you calling them out when they're doing things that are damaging their own lives.
You know, it's been a long time since I just shared a story on my TikTok, so let's have a little Jenny true life story. October 2019 was moving day for me and my kids. I'm sure many of you have moved before. We had some friends come over and help pack up my boxes full of, dishes and towels and move all the furniture out. And everything from my kids' bedrooms and my living room and my kitchen. I forgot that Jenny's story time 99% of the time ends in me crying. We moved everything out of our family home and put it in a moving trailer and drove it 2 miles down the street to a storage unit where everything went inside, except for just a couple of things. My son, who was 9 at the time, had one Rubbermaid box where he had his school backpack, his toothbrush, a week's worth of clothes, some underwear, some of his school books. I think he had a little Pokemon plush, his pillow. He held on to that. It didn't go in the storage unit. My daughter had a couple suitcases full of things. She was 14. She was a freshman in high school. And the back of my car was full of some of the things that I might need. I remember after my friends helped load everything up in the storage unit, standing there and looking at everything that used to be in my house. And I didn't have another house to move it into. That night, I pulled the door down on that storage unit and I drove my son to a friend's house where he was going to sleep for a couple days, and then a couple days later he was going to transfer to another friend's house, and he would do that for months. I drove my daughter to a cousin's house. She was going to couch surf with some cousins. Again, she was a freshman in high school. She was 14 years old. That night, I stayed with Kevin, who at the time was a brand new relationship. We'd only known each other for a couple months. And I kind of couch surfed with friends here and there and slept in my car sometimes because I didn't want to have to be a burden on anybody. And in case you're new here and you don't know my story and why I ended up not having a home to take the stuff from my home and move into, I had been a stay-at-home mom for 24 years. And my husband had just very recently abandoned me for another woman. I met him when I was 19 years old. I had been raised Mormon. My only purpose in life was to be somebody's wife and to have babies and cook sourdough bread and keep the house clean and keep myself pretty and skinny. And I did just that. I married at 20, and while I helped run our family businesses, I had never had a credit card. I'd never had my name on anything. I had never had any income of my own, not ever. I didn't have any skills that could translate into a job that would support my children. The day that my marriage ended, the day that my kid's dad abandoned his family and abandoned me, I was left with zero. I had absolutely nothing. I went to Trader Joe's 2 days after our marriage ended. I had a $43 couple bags of groceries bill that I couldn't pay for because he had taken everything out. I swiped my card. Everything was gone. I remember in that couple of weeks right after he abandoned us thinking, surely there's something that I can do to make money. So I put together a little resume and I sent it out everywhere, and I was going in everywhere applying for jobs. And I did get a job. I got a job working 4 hours a day in a school as an assistant in a classroom teaching literature for $11 an hour, $44 a day. I had 4 children who were financially dependent on me, 2 in college, and then the 2 young ones at home. And then I thought alimony and child support is going to kick in. They're going to have to make him pay. Well, spoiler alert, it's almost 6 years later. I got alimony exactly one time. The first month after our marriage ended, he paid, and then he discovered that the court wasn't going to enforce it. He extorted me. He threatened my life. It was a nightmare from hell. He now has just a few $100s a month in child support that he pays after 24 years of marriage. I am the primary custodian. The children have always lived with me since the divorce. And I didn't know when I was picking out a wedding dress and when I was deciding what color flowers I was going to have at the reception. And I didn't know when I decided to go off the birth control pill and have my first of 4 biological and 1 adopted children. And I didn't know when I decided that my education wasn't important because Heavenly Father wanted me to be a mom. And I was living a life of $1 million homes and luxury vehicles and summers in Hawaii. I didn't know that I was risking my financial security and my children's lives more than anything else that I could have ever done on the face of this planet ever. Nobody told me that. I also didn't know that financial dependence is the #1 risk factor for domestic violence. I didn't know that 80% of stay-at-home moms have no retirement of their own and that elderly females are the most poverty-stricken demographic in the United States of America. And I couldn't have known the feeling that I personally would have that day moving out of our house and knowing that I wouldn't be sitting down to dinner with my kids, that there was no way for me to just tuck them into bed because we didn't have beds. I didn't know when he put that ring on my finger 24 years before that I was literally throwing away my children's future security. So no, I don't support choice. I support education. I support women supporting other women in making decisions that are healthy and wholesome and that are protective of them and their children's futures. And I don't support the stay-at-home mom or the stay-at-home girlfriend or the stay-at-home wife movement any more than I support my kids getting in their vehicle with their teenage friends driving without a seatbelt. A man is not a plan, never has been, never should be. No adult human being should ever be dependent on another adult human being for their financial security. And I'm even going a step beyond that at this point. I believe that the trad wife trend is child abuse, based on all the data that shows that the children of trad wives in divorce are squarely in the childhood poverty demographic. They go without medical care, they go without food, they go without clothing. It would actually take me months to just save up the money to rent a hotel room with my kids a couple nights so that I could just be with them again. I would eventually put an VRBO on my credit card that I'm still paying off to this day so that I could live with my kids for 2 months so that they could just have a home and some normalcy. And I only found housing as quickly as I did because a family member let me rent his guest house. And let me wrap it up with this. We need to stop looking at the Hannah Nealmans and the Nara Smiths of the world who are multi-millionaires and fantasizing about being that stay-at-home mom for our kids because they don't have the same risks that we have. We need to go to a real-life divorce court in Tucson, Arizona, like I do, and see the real-life people and the way that their lives are destroyed in divorce when they are not self-reliant, when their whole entire life and their children's lives are dependent on a man. 17% of alimony ever gets paid, and only 40% of child support is ever collected. You can't argue with that data.